All right, looks like we are live. So, hello everybody. It's Rachelle Jones again, grief recovery. Again, multitasking. So we're going over here too. So I'm looking at both screens. Oh, it's Friday. I'm actually here on a Friday. That's the big surprise. Oh, hi there, Aldo. Hi, thanks for being here. Hi. Thank you for joining in. Okay, so the question that I had this week, I had a few, but I'm going to talk about this one today, is about the Helping Children with Loss program. The question is, aren't kids pretty resilient? Why would they need the Helping Children with Loss program? So I'm going to talk about that and a little bit about why I really am passionate about the Helping Children with Loss program. So the first thing is actually, hold on one second. Okay. So the first thing is, let's understand for a minute, first of all, the definition of resiliency. You could just Google it, look it up, but it's the ability to recover after difficulty. So aren't kids resilient? Let's look at that for a little bit. First, it's really important to know what grief is. So grief is the emotional reaction that happens as a result of change or loss. Anytime there's a loss of any kind, there's a change. But I like to take the word loss out because people hear the word loss and they tend to think about death. And loss is just about losing a relationship. And children go through loss and change. Being born is a huge loss and change, isn't it? Every single one of us is grown in a warm womb. It's warm, it's tight, it's cuddly, and to be born somehow into this great big world, that is a grief experience immediately. The child is leaving what is familiar and warm and comfortable, protection, love, and coming out into this world. So literally being born is a grief experience. If we're just going to stick with the definition of grief being the emotional impact of change, I mean, babies almost always come out crying. Actually, my son did not. He's kind of rare, but they were really worried about him. He was super alert. He just didn't cry. But and we don't understand that. And then they don't have the ability almost ever. There are those rare cases you'll read about, but they don't have the ability to recall the emotional impact of this huge change that changed the experience. In fact, our memory doesn't even show up. I see in real life working with people, usually anywhere from like 5, sometimes a little earlier, but like 5 to 10 is the main where memory wakes up. Doesn't mean they're not accumulating memories. The body remembers, the heart, the emotion, there is a memory that happens, but we're not able to recall it per se. We might know that loud sounds are scary, but we're not going to remember that we learned that because mom and dad were fighting when I was 6 weeks old and loud sounds were scary. They're not going to remember that detail almost ever. Sometimes they will, though. It's really strange. But so that's the general thing. So grief is the emotional impact from change. So when we take them from, either breast to food or bottle to food, when we get rid of their pacifier, their special blanket, their favorite toy gets lost, broken, whatever, they give it to a friend or a new sibling. This is change, and there's an emotional impact that goes along with all of that. And then it can increase. We move, maybe they receive a pet, maybe the pet runs away or the pet dies for whatever reason, maybe it's ill. Maybe what other things do kids often experience? Kids can experience death of a grandparent, a parent, a sibling. The death of their hamster or their pet snake can really be sad for kids. It can cause an emotional reaction. Change of school every year, or change of teacher, change of classroom, change of schools. So we accumulate a lot of grief in our childhood and we don't even necessarily realize it. So as we're adding up this grief, remember, grief is cumulative. It keeps adding up and it's cumulatively negative. So as it's adding up, it's having a heavier and heavier and heavier impact. Now, the unique thing with children is they have no control. They have no say. They don't even have the vocabulary available to them to express this pain, to express that, hey, I'm really sad. They'll start off telling the truth. Kids start off telling the truth. Your babies cry when they have a need that isn't met. We don't understand their language, so we do our best. They are speaking honestly. Hey, I'm hurting. I'm uncomfortable. I'm scared. I need a cuddle. Whatever it is, they speak honestly. We just don't understand their language. So we have to guess and do our best. And because of that, we kind of get into this habit of just jumping in to fix things and do for them because that's what we have to do. They're sort of helpless as babies. And then we sort of continue that behavior a lot of times as they're getting a little older and can communicate. And so we often don't learn to listen to kids as they learn to communicate, but they started off telling the truth. That's the big thing about kids. They started off telling the truth. They just didn't have power or control over their situations. And really they're just absorbing everything that we teach them. Now, oftentimes we're teaching them things that aren't super helpful. They're not correct. They're not helpful. They're just not effective. And so because of that, kids only can take what we give them. And so then there's this concept, or mom and dad divorces per se, or I moved 16 times by the time I was 14. So it was constantly moving, constant change of a safe place, constant change of friends, constant change of familiarity, constant change. And if we apply grief as the emotional impact from change, I only knew grief, to be honest. And I don't remember anyone ever talking to me about moving. This isn't to say anyone is good or bad. This is just my experience. And so what I learned as a kid, because we didn't talk about moving, we didn't talk about loss of friends, we didn't talk about change, we didn't talk about sadness, we didn't talk about things. We didn't talk about emotion. So I naturally learned that whatever I was feeling, I just was quiet. I just carried it forward. Nobody said we don't talk about feelings. They just didn't. So I just naturally learned that we don't do that. And then a lot of times things that are said are unhelpful. But kids, going back to, aren't kids resilient? Sort of, yes. They can keep going. They have less practice going through life with heavy burdens. So it hasn't accumulated into such a way that they're going to stop functioning. And let's just be honest, if a child stops functioning at school, they get in trouble. If they stop functioning at home, they get in trouble. There are negative consequences of whatever kind. You know, we're not going to go into whose believes and what the consequence should be. Excuse me. But there are consequences. And the thing is, kids don't know how to express, I'm grieving, but it shows up in their body language. It shows up in their sleep. It shows up in their focus. It shows up in their concentration. It shows up in their energy levels. It shows up in how they're treating their siblings. It shows up in all these different ways. And it shows up in, I have a tummy ache. It shows up in different ways, but we have not, us adults, learned how to listen and hear the grief part of it. We just like, oh, they have a tummy ache, let's rub it, let's do oils, let's get a bath, let's do this, we sometimes miss that it's usually a grief cause. And so that can lead to a whole host of things. Now, kids are not necessarily resilient. They just don't have the tools and the know-how, and usually the permission to grieve. And that's really what's more accurate. Resilient means to recover, to like actually feel better and not have it replay and resurface the way that it does with us adults. And we try to pretend that it's not there, but it is. So the Helping Children with Loss class, we use this book in the class, When Children Grieve. If you'd like a copy, let me know and I'll get you a copy, okay? You can also find them on Amazon. I get them. I have tons of books. So we use this book in the class, again, written by John W. James, Russell Friedman, and Leslie Landon Matthews, Michael Landon's daughter, one of his children. So, and you'll see Fred Rogers endorsed it. He didn't endorse very many things, but he was huge into this book and this program. So, and I see pieces of this work in so much of what he says and does, but anyway, or said and did. But anyway, So going back to resiliency, the purpose of this class in this book is to help us, the adults who are raising them, who are teaching them, who are principaling them, who are their therapists, who are their social workers. It's to help us, the adults, recognize grief causes. If you like, look into ACEs, the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Events Study. And so if you're familiar with that, you're in the social work type, you're in the therapist type, you're probably familiar with that type of work. So we are super aware that there are certain events that happen in childhood that are going to have a big, huge impact on a person's life and often negatively affect. Hi there. Hi, thanks for being here. It's often going to have a usually heavy and negative impact. A study out where domestic violence is really born. It's born in the unresolved emotional impact from things that happen in childhood very often. And that's grows into domestic violence in adulthood. So the ACEs study is really interesting to read and just go crazy with it. Go read and study. So kids do go through things in their childhood from extreme. I've worked this method with kids who've been raped, who've been abused. And I don't work with the kids no, I don't work with the children. I work with the adults. What would be the point of me working with children, teaching them true, correct, helpful things, but the adults who are raising them, the ones who are in charge, don't speak, believe, say, or do? It's really going to put conflict on the kid. So I actually don't work with kids ever. And I'm so relieved about that. I work with adults. The adults are the leaders. The adults are the ones who set the standard. The adults are the ones who need to learn and do and be different. So this is sort of a way in to the understandings, the tools, the ideas and concepts of the grief recovery method. The grief recovery method, the original purple book, that's for us to help ourselves. I highly recommend it. But a lot of times people are honestly, let's get down to it. Usually they're too afraid. I'm fine, I'm good. I look how successful I am. Look at all these, awards and accommodations, and look at my success. Look at I'm fine. Okay, we won't go there. Perhaps then consider ensuring that you are doing and saying the best for your child who grieves. They have an emotional impact from change. And if the adults don't know what to say and do, they're probably going to say and do things that are not helpful, not true, not correct, and thereby leaving the grief to accumulate inside of a child. And remember, it accumulates, but it accumulates negatively. So that's why we see abuse, suicide and depression and anxiety. Yes, social media and the phones and the smartphone, there's so much to it. But by the time kids are getting such an onslaught of information these days, but by the time they get to college age, we're in trouble. Hi there, thanks for joining. Thank you for being here. By the time we get to college age and above, it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier, more intense. The life that we go through gets heavier, the experiences, and it's just adding to everything that we've already been accumulating as children. So it goes back to what's resiliency? Resiliency is to recover. I don't want to just keep dragging this weight along and everyone's like, look how good I'm doing. But I know inside it's heavy. And what I've learned from the lack of response from people, I'm speaking as a child now, is to just carry it along and somehow that's success. Somehow that's resiliency. That doesn't sound like resiliency. That sounds like fitting in. That sounds like people pleasing. That sounds like faking it. And that's not okay. We have to change the narrative. If we want to see these things change the direction of what's happening with our children, we have to be willing to consider we may not know everything. I never claim to know everything, but I do work hard to learn what I don't know. And it's infinite. So maybe consider this. Start here. This is it's based on the grief recovery method. The grief recovery method is evidence-based. So we know if you take the tools and use them and apply them in the order and the way that they're supposed to be done, that you're going to arrive at recovery. We know that. That's what evidence-based means. This is based on that. I can't get into your child and measure that. And that's why this one isn't necessarily evidence-based, but it's based on the same tools, concepts, and information. We're just going to teach you the adult who's in charge, how to see, hear, talk, feel, smell, all of it. so that you can really be present and the most helpful for these children. Like I said, I don't care if you're a teacher, a principal, a social worker, a psychologist, psychiatrist, just a parent, an aunt, an uncle. Go equip yourself before the huge grief event happens. Why would we wait so that we could feel? I mean, when we wait, we end up feeling not adequate, uncertain. We don't know what to do. So we don't start driving and then go to driving school. We don't start operating as a surgeon and then go to surgeon school. Like, oh, I guess I should figure that. No, go get prepared on the front end. So that's what this is. Excuse me. It's a 4-week class. We meet, we could do it 1-to-1. We could do it as a group. The group experience is really cool with this class. I love it, actually. I only schedule through the VITA program. The VITA program is a program here in LA County that the Sheriff's Department's put on. So it's with the LA County Sheriff's Department, different towns in the county. They put on a 16-week course. It's super cool. It's like $25, I think, for 16 weeks of therapy, home inspections. It's like a whole family involved program. And hi, thanks for being here. I work with the adults. I teach them this method. I spread it out though. So I meet about 8 out of the 16 times. We go through this book. We learn these tools, information, and actions. English and Spanish speaking, there's an interpreter available, and we do this work together. It's amazing to watch these families learn and grow, learn healthier communication, learn effective action together. It's so incredible. So I work with the adults through the VITA program, and I teach this class, the Helping Children with Grief class, and we use the When Children Grieve book, because it's important for you to, one, know that children are grieving. It's important to know what grief is, the emotional impact one has from change. That happens at every age, from every type of change. And there's a problem out there with people only ascribing the permission to grieve to people who've been through something really intense, such as maybe like a death or a rape or abuse, or maybe even a divorce. But I'm telling you right now, your kids are grieving because they have to change schools. I saw my son lose his mind going from 8th to 9th grade. That was such an intense change for him. He still isn't fully recovered, because now he's at an age, he got to that age in 9th grade where he didn't want, I got it figured out. And that was that. So now I just have to wait. And I could say and do little things here as we go, because he knows that I'm not one of the ones who's going to mislead him or whatever, but I'm also mom, and he doesn't want me to fix him, which I'm not trying to fix him, I'm trying to hear him, but he believes that he's got it figured out. That's just where we are. And so he's not necessarily open to doing the work, but he does do it sort of like verbally and in the moment. The best way he understands. There's a whole lot to that that I'd love to share with you at a different time. So, and then sort of for his privacy and stuff, I can't share everything, but anyway, the Helping Children with Loss class is for you, the adult, who would like to hear better, know better. There's nothing worse than just not knowing what to do when you see a child hurting. And this is good, helpful information. Do you guys have thoughts, wonders, and questions out there? I'll wait a couple minutes for you to type them in here. You can always send me messages with my posts. People have questions. So if you ever have a question, you can send it in the private messages, and I bring some of them out to share with you because I think they're really important. The Helping Children with Grief class. And I'm going to tell you what, the younger the child is, 2, 3, 4, sometimes by 5, they're starting to change to our ideas and concepts. And our ideas and concepts usually aren't true, correct, and helpful. Sometimes they hang on to that like really strong ability to be truthful and honest until maybe like 8, sometimes 9 or 10. But I do see people where they've already started to notice changes in their family. or in their children. But to be honest, when you have a 2 or 3-year-old, just follow their lead. Really, they're going to tell you the truth every time. When they're curious, they don't care if the person's in a wheelchair. They're going to point and stare and wonder, why is that one different? And that's not bad. They just notice a difference and they're curious. They don't know. They weren't born with that knowledge. So they have to ask. If they see someone crying and sad, they may cry with them because they just feel. They don't have a bunch of incorrect, unhelpful information that says, oh, we don't want to look at them, we don't want to stare at them, we don't want them to feel uncomfortable. They're already crying, so something's already going on. So what if we just ask with curiosity, what's going on? What happened? What's so heavy on your heart? And little kids will do that. This is so neat to watch little kids now, knowing what I know. I didn't learn this until my youngest was 3, just before 3, like a month maybe. And she had already had incorrect, unhelpful behaviors in her life from what I taught her, sadly. And so now she's 14 and I've had to do a whole lot of work, and I've seen so much change and still hints of that old unhelpful stuff too. Until she's more aware and wanting to make a change, then there won't be. But she does have a lot of good, helpful information in there that I see get used. She tells me stories with her friends and even her teachers, and both my kids have done that. They can be a heart with ears for adults all day long because they've learned it through my example of being with them. Not because I teach the stuff. They're not with me in the classes. They can't hear it. They have learned because of our being in our home. And I want that for you too, if you want it. So we can set up a class. It's, like I said, 4 weeks, 2 hours once a week. It's helpful just as a place to learn. Know that you're getting good information. Have someone available who knows you can ask questions to, or enroll in the VITA program and go through it with me that way. Your child has to participate as well, and they have to be, excuse me, I think the age of kids is 8 to 17. So I'm seeing adults in all stages, which is helpful because I've been in them. I'm in them with you guys. I'm a parent too. And that's not what makes me qualified to do this, but it sure is really helpful when they were walking through life together, and then they've got sort of a coach and a teacher to show them what to do, to hear their moments and help give them guidance if they're looking for it, in a way that we know is going to be useful. So thank you for logging in here. Thank you for your questions. Don't be afraid to send them in. I love to have them. And usually someone else is wondering what it is anyway. You can go to the LA County Sheriff's website, or just type in like LA County Sheriff VITA. It's on my my website under events. You can find it there. The next class begins August 17th. So you want to look into it before then. And I don't think you necessarily apply, but I think there is a little bit of an interview process to make sure that you can be available. We meet on Thursday nights for VITA, the adults do. So Thursday nights at 6 p.m. And we just get to do this work together. It's precious and beautiful. And I love you. And I'm thankful for your questions, your curiosity. Thank you for your time to be here. And if you just like a book at the very least, let me know. I'll help you get a book. All right. I sure love you guys. Thanks for being here. Love y'all. What is this, Friday? All right. I hope you find some love and peace and joy in your weekend, and courage to try new things. Be open to new things. All right. Bye, everybody.